Oi, acho que vou falar no microfone que fica com mais certeza de vocês poderem me ouvir. Bom, então bem-vindos ao encontro do PUBTechSF Stanford de 2018. Os encontros PUBTech acontecem desde dezembro de 2014. A primeira reunião aconteceu no Consulado do Brasil aqui em São Francisco. E essas reuniões, elas têm como objetivo agregar cientistas brasileiros. PUB quer dizer pesquisadores e universitários brasileiros. E aqui na área de São Francisco também agrega o pessoal da área de tecnologia. E segue um modelo do que foi criado em Boston alguns anos atrás, onde a intenção é reunir pesquisadores brasileiros para que a gente possa ter uma ideia de a pesquisa que os brasileiros vêm fazendo aqui na área. Então, geralmente é extremamente dinâmico, porque alguns pesquisadores vêm, ficam um período, depois vão para o Brasil. Então, a gente tenta, na medida do possível, fazer com que a comunidade científica brasileira que está aqui nesse período possa se conectar, se conhecer e poder se ajudar, interagir. De repente, a gente pode, por intermédio de criar essa rede de conexão, de repente, facilitar numa nova colocação e principalmente para compartilhar o conhecimento. Então, as reuniões acontecem 4 vezes ao ano. Tem sempre o PUBTech de São Francisco, de Stanford, de Berkeley e tem um no Vale do Silício. E é tudo baseado no voluntariado. Então, as comissões organizadoras são todos voluntários. Geralmente, a gente tenta conseguir alguns voluntários de cada local, porque ajuda bastante, como aqui em Stanford. As meninas que trabalham aqui têm uma conexão maior para poder conseguir uma sala e as facilidades que a gente precisa para conseguir organizar o evento. A gente não tem fundo, não tem dinheiro, então é tudo na base do voluntariado. A gente pede no final uma contribuição financeira, se alguém puder ter uma caixinha ali para a gente coletar um pouco de dinheiro para poder fornecer as coxinhas também, que a gente sempre oferece na hora do network, é importante. Então, essas 4 reuniões anuais acontecem a cada 3 meses e vocês são todos bem-vindos e também serão bem-vindos para participar de comissões futuras, caso vocês tenham algum interesse. Então, hoje a gente, o modelo é sempre o mesmo, a gente tem apresentações de 2 cientistas que vão falar durante 15 minutos, de uma forma abrangente, porque a gente tem pesquisadores de todas as áreas, é extremamente multidisciplinar, e no final a gente tem um pitch de impacto social, que é algum brasileiro que está aqui na área, fazendo algum trabalho com algum valor social, que vai ter algum valor agregado social. E, geralmente, a gente tem, às vezes, alguma apresentação a mais no início da reunião. Nesse caso, hoje, vai ser o Ravi que vai falar. Eu vou deixar a apresentação dele ser feita pela Maria Ângela. E as reuniões são sempre em português, exceção vai ser agora para ele, que ele vai falar em inglês.
Bom, boa noite. Eu estou aqui para apresentar, eu vou falar em inglês porque o Ravi está, na realidade, representando o Robson Capasso, que foi, que a gente tem que agradecer, graças a ele a gente conseguiu essa sala. E ele então mandou uma pessoa representante sobre o trabalho que o Robson Capasso está fazendo, e o Ravi faz parte da equipe dele de biodesign. Ravi Panani, ele trabalha em Healthcare Innovation e o trabalho que eles usam é de metodologia de biodesign. Então, ele vai falar um pouquinho do trabalho dele, né? So, no further ado, I present Ravi. Yeah, he went to Brazil in it's your 2nd year, if I'm not believe. Yeah.
3rd year.
3rd year, okay, yeah. So with the group of the biodesign, yeah. Okay, so I give you.
Do you have slides? Yes.
Oh, before. Mm-hmm. Welcome to Ravi Panini.
Muito obrigado, Mariangela. So excuse me, I won't be speaking in Portuguese because that's the only few words I know. But I will tell you guys about our experiences teaching healthcare innovation at the Hospital Einstein in Sao Paulo. If you guys have any questions, feel free to interrupt me or we can save it for the end. But first, before I begin, a little about myself. I am a healthcare, really a very passionate believer in healthcare innovation. I've worked in mostly medical technology my career. I was a mechanical engineer, worked for a big company, and then most recently I worked for a small company in different specialties, cardiac surgery, ophthalmology, and now I'm starting a company in gastroenterology doing drug delivery. But I'm not going to talk about that at all. I'm going to talk about healthcare innovation in our program that we ran, Robson and I ran in Brazil. I met Robson when I was a biodesign fellow in 2010, 2011, and we just connected and became good friends, and we came up with this idea around doing these programs, and because he would get a lot of interest being a Brazilian from people in Brazil, and so he said, could you help me with this? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. So that's how it all started. And before I begin also, I'd like to just say parabéns. Very nice job. So, 10 more days and we'll see where the team goes. So bye Brazil. So how does innovation happen? We have this notion of when you have an innovative idea, there's a moment of invention, like the apple dropping on the head of Isaac Newton, and it's this kind of this moment where you just come up with this idea. And here is a scenario of if Isaac Newton had modern technology, he might have missed the moment and not have made his discovery of gravity because he was distracted by his other apple. And this other idea, so again represented by the light bulb turning on, like flash of innovation. This just comes to you, and there's sort of like a magical miracle that happens. And we even have this in the comics, the light bulb turns on. Oh, I have the idea, I have the solution. But really, is that really how innovation works? When you look at the invention of the modern light bulb, Thomas Edison did not have the flash of a light bulb idea. He developed hundreds of light bulb prototypes and concepts. Some of them burned out within minutes. Some of them were too expensive. And it took him many tries to eventually identify the right light bulb. And so really innovation that we teach is a process. And most importantly, it's a process that can be taught and learned. It's not something that you have to be born with or is sort of a magical experience. And so if innovation is a process, what are the guidelines to innovation? Here, it's a gentleman is saying, hey, I'll give you innovative thinking, but tell me what the rules are. And it seems like rules and innovation are at opposition with each other, but what we're teaching is that in fact they're not. When you follow a process and you have guidelines, it helps to focus your energy and to develop innovative ideas. And so what we teach here at Stanford is something called the biodesign process. The biodesign process takes a lot of elements from different methodologies, including design thinking, as well as looking at stakeholder analysis, and focuses it on healthcare. And healthcare is a special case, really, of innovation because it's complicated. There are many stakeholders. Oftentimes we're developing solutions. The user is the patient, but the customer is actually someone else, the physician, or the insurance company, or the hospital system. And so how do you reconcile the needs of all these different stakeholders, nurses versus doctors versus the people in the ambulance, all these different parts of the healthcare system, and how do you create a solution that not only works, but can be adopted into the current system. And that's what this process is all about. First step is identifying needs here, then inventing solutions and implementing them. And this is normally a 9-month process. And what we did, the innovation we did is that we compressed this down to 1 week. And we basically made the participants in the program experience this all in an intensive manner. And here's the flash of the schedule. You can see it was a jam-packed schedule. And we had them starting off going into the hospitals, giving them no clear guidance in terms of what they were going to work on. We told them find a project by talking to doctors, identifying problems, and then come out with solutions by the end of the week. So no easy task. So the first step that we did was building a team. And this is an important part of any innovation process. And really, this is my favorite quote. You want people that have disagreements and have different backgrounds. And that those conflicts will often be the great chance to start innovation. So we brought four teams mixed with engineers, physicians, people with business backgrounds, all to bring different perspectives into the innovation process. Geneticists was on one of the teams. A patent lawyer was on one of the teams. So you bring these different experiences to make the best outcome. And then you have them kind of get to know each other. So we spent an afternoon doing team building exercises. They had to build a spaghetti tower, and that's a kind of a great way to accelerate working in a comfortable team situation, because it's going to get harder as you have disagreements and issues and conflicts arise, and how do you resolve those conflicts. Then we take them and we say, first, identify the need. And this again is the core process. We borrow a lot from design thinking here, understanding the user, understanding all the stakeholders, and deriving what are the most important needs that are not being met today by those users. And Thomas Edison, a great inventor, but really good marketing guy, really found needs and knew how to address them. And in some ways, this is the opposite of what a lot of technology innovation does, whereas you have some kind of tool, like a hammer, you find places you can use your hammer, but sometimes the hammer is not the best solution. For example, cracking open an egg. And so what we preach in the program is really about observation, actually going into the settings where you are going to identify these issues and these unmet needs, and coming away with it with a long list of needs. We tell the participants to come away with 100 needs, and then using metrics like the impact of the need if you were to solve it, the number of people affected by the need. We have them filter down which are the top, most impactful needs. That's me right there in the operating room. Cut my head off though. But as you know, healthcare doesn't just happen in the hospital. And so traditionally our program has focused on the hospital and the clinic, but we are now trying to move away from that, given that healthcare happens everywhere, and taking care of your health is something that needs to happen at home or everywhere you go. And so we had these teams do need finding in different settings, in the Einstein Hospital, in the satellite hospitals that were focused on the underserved as well. This was the SUS hospitals. So this was a way for the participants to get a broad range of exposure to different levels of the healthcare system. And have them experience it for themselves. That's sort of one of the key things we like to teach as well. Really, the way we develop it then is to come up with need statements. Need statements talk about the problem, what's the population you're trying to address, and what's the change in the outcome that you're requiring to achieve. And from a single observation, you can derive many need statements, and you can develop many different outcomes. What is the key outcome that you are trying to address? Is it improving the efficacy of a solution or of a lack of solutions? Is it increasing safety? Maybe a problem today is very unsafe in the way it's treated, high rates of complications, for example. Is it very expensive? So this is just a short list of some of the potential outcomes we could target. And again, the way the need is formulated can affect the solutions you come up with. For example, if Henry Ford, the classic example is if he said, I just want to come up with a faster horse that doesn't get tired, then you may think of different ways to make a horse faster. Maybe you have breeding methods. Maybe you have food that feeds the horse faster. Maybe you can exercise their muscles to become stronger. But really, what's the goal? What are you trying to achieve? You're transporting people from one place to another. And so really, by breaking down the need to its fundamental objectives, you expand your potential solutions that you could consider as part of that. And we have the teams really dive into this and spend a full day just laying out need statements and understanding what are the needs. And we forbid them to think about what are the solutions. We say no solutions yet. What's the problem you're trying to solve and why? And is that really the problem or is it something else? And we spend hours debating this, have them go through it, and think about the different aspects of that. And we give them lectures on how to achieve that. Finally, when they come up with their need statement that they really believe and they've validated it, it looks like this is the most promising need, really big impact, if we could solve it, then we say, now go ahead and start thinking of a solution. And this is where the engineers get really happy. Finally, they can start to think of technologies and things to solve the needs. And so we use typical methods like brainstorming and concept development to help them think of all the possible solutions that they can do. And again, flare to have many solutions and think about what would be the best. And we give them the tools to do that with rapid prototyping. We partnered with a prototype shop that in the area. How do you do prototyping in a way? So teaching them tools about prototyping for demonstration purposes versus for functional testing and all the different aspects that go along with that. And the teams got really into it. They were spending, they had about 6 days of actual work time. And we got very impressive outcomes with the teams. They had projects ranging from ways to measure pain objectively for patients who cannot communicate, for example, dementia patients. How do you assess if they're in pain, whether they're in a procedure or they're at home, and being able to then act on it. We had projects related to cardiovascular rehabilitation. So again, very specific problem. Patients who have heart disease or are in the hospital discharged, doing rehab, physical therapy, for example, is the best way for them to have outcomes. But compliance is very low in the US and even, especially in Brazil, even lower. So how do you create tools to get them to do physical therapy better at home, or what are the issues around physical therapy for those patients? The winning project was actually an idea around infections in the ICU. So one of the leading causes of infections is bad mouth hygiene. I did not know this. Patients really don't get their teeth brushed when they're in the ICU. And so, and they do actually, there is a protocol. It's kind of, nurses have to implement it like 3 or 4 times a day. It takes 15, 20 minutes. It's kind of a hassle. So they developed a mouthpiece that attaches to the intubation tube, and it has a cleaning system that automatically irrigates and cleans out and flushes out the bacteria. And it was a winning solution. I think they're patenting the idea. And so we'll see if it goes anywhere. We don't know, but the goal of the program is not necessarily to come up with an idea in 1 week. It's kind of a difficult situation, but the idea is, can they come up with the process and become experts in a methodology that they can apply again and again throughout their career? And so why need-based innovation? Why focus on the needs first? This is a list of the top 20 reasons startups fail in the US. And the first reason here literally is no market need. They were developing a solution that there was no need for. And so they raised financing, they spent time of their life to work on this problem, and no one even, it wasn't actually a problem. And these other ones too, if you look at reasons why, for example, they got outcompeted by a competitor, they didn't have a business model, they ignored their customers. They're all related to bad needs and bad need finding. And so in Brazil, I think there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of challenges, but I think the timing is right. It's a rapidly growing population that's older and older. There's a lot of chronic diseases. The prevalence of diabetes is going to be higher in Brazil than it is in the US in 5 to 10 years. With IT, there is more technological possibilities of having distributed and accessible innovation in remote areas that normally wouldn't have access to those things. And so there's a lot of issues to work through, regulatory issues, IP issues, infrastructure and supply chain issues, but the opportunities are great. Future plans, we're looking at potential course in collaboration with Anvisa. We're looking at other partnerships with incubators and other institutions in Brazil, as well as helping ways for entrepreneurs in Brazil to help bridge outside of Brazil to Silicon Valley and globally. So, muito obrigado, thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I can take those now.
will you go to Brazil?
I've been there about once a year for the past few years. This is the first time in Sao Paulo. We were also running a course in Curitiba that Robson had established a partnership with the university there. And so it really depends on sort of the partners that we find and the needs that they have.
After having the idea, how to build this? If it's
Yes.
a device, something that needs to be manufactured somewhere, how do you find it?
That's a great question. So typically, it depends on the situation. At Einstein, they had some funding. In a previous partnership we had with the university, they had an incubator, accelerator model. But we still haven't figured this part out. Even in the US, this is a hard problem to solve, is the gap between kind of the idea stage and how do you get to commercialization. And venture funding is the other option, or finding other investors, but that's something we're still working through. And it's a key because once you have a great idea, you have to be able to then execute on it and be able to develop it. And that's where there's more investment and partnerships are needed. Yeah.
So thanks for the talk. I think the part that interests me the most, about the process of statement of need. How do you actually trigger, or the type of conversation that you start with the client to make him be very clear about the needs he has? That's kind of, how do you do that? Do you have any strategy or effective?
Typically, you just ask them a lot of questions. Oftentimes, they will not state the need, or they will state a need, but it's a very narrow focus. But really, it's more about learning a kind of interview process of asking them, why. There's a lot of different techniques. For example, just keep asking them why until you get to some core problem. Or ultimately, I think it comes down
Kids
to
do this very well. Keep
yes,
asking why.
kids. Yeah, they call it the five whys, for example, in journalism. But really, it comes down to observation. If you can observe something and you ask them, actually, one thing that I always try to do is ask people to quantify things. If I tell them, hey, how often does a patient have a side effect? What's the actual frequency in your day? How many patients come in with an issue? And they say maybe it's 20%. Or maybe if they said this is a big problem, but then you ask them to quantify it, they say, maybe one patient in the last 6 months had the problem. Then is it really a big problem? So by forcing quantification, you can get a better sense of the impact. But I mean, this is a tough problem too, is figuring out how to characterize needs. And oftentimes you can't trust what people tell you because a lot of times people don't understand their own needs. They're so deep in something that they don't realize what their needs are. And that's where coming from an outside perspective really helps. Yeah.
What is the main goal of a project like that? Is it to create a company? Is it to create a product? Is it just to train the people how to be innovative? What is the first?
Yeah, I mean, we're a university program, right? So our goal is education primarily, and we want to teach this process of innovation. But because we use real-world metrics, oftentimes there are really good product ideas that come out. At the Stanford program, it's been around for almost 20 years, about 18 years. There have probably been about 50 companies started in that process. One of the companies went IPO last year. And so sometimes they're successful, many of them are not, most of them are not successful, but as is the case with any startup or any innovative idea. But it's not the goal. The goal is education and teaching. And here it's about kind of expanding that globally. Stanford also has programs in India and China, and so we were exploring building